Hello, everyone, and welcome to my dog. Or I'm sorry, I never knew, but my dog did podcast. I am Maureen Scanlon, your hostess. I have a little echo in my ear, and it feels so weird today. So don't know what's going on, but I'm so happy everyone's here today. I think you're going to really appreciate my next guest, especially those of us in the older age group. I'm not going to specifically call you out, but you know who you are. When he came across my desk, I thought, oh, he's going to be perfect for this podcast because I think there are stages in life that we get lost in. And I think also that the second half of our lives is sort of the best half of our lives. So I can't wait for you to hear his take on this. So my next guest is Billy Lahr, and he is an intentional living and mindfulness coach. He is a certified personal trainer, former educator, and serial overthinker. Aren't we all? Billy also hosts the Mindful Midlife Crisis, a podcast for people navigating the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. Billy spent 21 years as an educator, but burned out the last half due to budding mental health concerns and a lack of job satisfaction. In 2021, Billy left his job as Dean of Students in order to travel the world in search of more meaningful life experiences. Since then, he's been a GPS for those seeking purpose by identifying strengths, curiosities, and crew, and then turning that purpose into a passion through consistency, discipline, and patience. Welcome, my friend Billy. How are you? And we're so happy you're here today.
Hey, thank you for having me, Maureen. This is very exciting to be here. I appreciate it.
I love it. I love the origami behind you. That's
I wish I could claim this as my own office out of a it's called Namasink, and it's in Crystal, Minnesota. My wonderful friend Kristen Brown, it's her office space, and she lets me work out of here. She's a wonderful human being. There's good energy here. I'm not even a real big energy person, but she does energy work. So there's crystals and all that sort of weird stuff around here, and we give each other a hard time because I'm very much a skeptic and she's very much woo woo, and but it's a perfect place for me to work and just kind of brainstorm, and the two of us support our each other's work, and it's just a lot of fun to be here. So I wish I could claim this beautiful origami bird behind me as my own work, but I do not have those kind of artistic talents. Stick figures get mad at me when I try to draw them. So that's sort of where I'm at with my artistic ability.
perfect. And Kristen is my kindred spirit. So I am woo woo. I believe there is more than what we see. I think there's a lot of things that are unseen and just need to be felt. So, oh my gosh. So here on I Never Knew, we start with that knee story. And that knee story is that moment that brought you to where you are today, where we just sort of reach a moment where we think something's not working for me. And it's the hamster wheel moment, the insanity cycle, whatever you want to call it. But we just know in our heart, in our mind, in our soul, this isn't going the way it's supposed to. So tell us what your knee story is.
Yeah, I think I hit rock bottom around 2012. I was struggling with my mental health. I was struggling personally. I was struggling professionally. There's a lot of rejection on both sides there. And I was starting, all that started to manifest into anxiety attacks. And that started to lead into depression. And then that started to build into suicidal ideation. And I realized that, things I need to do something, and if I don't do something, then I'm going to start looking for a more permanent solution. And I was having conversations with my best friend, and he has his PhD in forensic neuropsychology. I was kind of using him as my go-to therapist, I guess. And he said, listen, you've got a lot going on. You need to seek professional help. Like you need to actually work with a therapist. So I was like, okay. And I luckily right around the corner from where I lived was a psychologist's office. And so I looked at who the therapists were there and I sent him all their bios and I said, you know me best, you know what I need. Let me know who you think is going to be the person that's going to be able to provide me the best support. And he picked out this therapist named Mindy Ben Dixon. And I owe very much my life to Mindy Ben Dixon. And I started working with her. And first thing I told her was, listen, I don't want to do medication. I think I had, I bought into the stigma around it. And, I think working in education, I see kids who I believe are over medicated. So she said, nope, don't worry. We're not going to do medication. We're going to do meditation. And said, do you have any experience with that? And I hadn't up to that point. So she started using mindfulness exercises with me and leading me through various name and tame meditation practices. And she helped me understand the somatic experience of an anxiety attack so that I would able to identify those when they would develop. And in doing so, I started to be able to regulate when those would happen a little bit better. And so it just kind of developing this awareness of, oh, hey, you're having an anxiety attack right now. And I would have anxiety attacks. I'd be standing up at the whiteboard and talking about Romeo and Juliet. And all of a sudden I could feel that somatic experience starting to bubble up in my stomach. That's a lot of times where I would initially feel my anxiety build up. And so then I was able to have this name and tame conversation with myself, almost like I was having this out of body experience. And it was, hey, you're going through this is anxiety attack. You know what this is. So now that you are aware of this feeling, let's try and keep it where it's at rather than try and push it down because it's only going to push back. Let's just kind of keep it where it's at. And now that you're aware of it, you can respond to what's going on in the classroom as opposed to react to what's going on in the classroom. So if a kid is tapping his pencil, rather than saying, stop tapping your pencil like you normally would do, you can just walk over and say, hey, can you please stop tapping your pencil? And just redirecting them in a way that is responsive as opposed to reactive. And so I've continued to develop that skill. And listen, I'm not perfect at it. I'm still navigating those anxiety attacks. I still have them, but again, they don't spiral into a tornado of negativity like they used to. And I still struggle with them, but I'm able to navigate them a little bit better. And one of the nicest things anyone has ever said to me is, Billy, one of the reasons why I like you is because when you're excited about something, you want everybody else to be excited about it too. And as I started cultivating a daily mindfulness practice and started feeling better, I remember one of my students saying to me the following year, Mr. Lahr, you seem like you're in a better mood this year. And that was it. That sold it for me because I was like, okay, this is palpable now. The energy coming off of me is palpable and my students feel it. So I imagine other people feel it too. So I'm like, well, if this helps a nut job like me, maybe it can help other people too. So I started to learn more and more about mindfulness and how it impacts behavior and how it impacts brain development. And because I truly enjoy teaching, I was like, hey, maybe this is something that, I could lead professional development sessions here and there. I can lead mindfulness sessions within my classroom and help kids kind of navigate the emotions that come up in a more responsive way. And I did that for a while, but it wasn't really wasn't something that I was committed to because I was teaching at that time. And then I moved into a dean of students position. So then I was focused on that. And in hindsight, I think that dean of students position actually caused me to regress a little bit. I missed being in front of students. I missed I love an audience. I feel far more comfortable standing in front of 1,000 people than I do 3. So I missed that, and I think that that kind of had an impact on how I felt about my work, and that is starting to lead to burnout. And there were some other things that were going on with that too, that were leading to this burnout. And as I was, as we were kind of navigating the pandemic at that time, I had always, I'm not married, I don't have kids, so I don't have the same responsibilities as everybody else. So I like to throw that caveat out there as well as we get into, finding time to do this sort of stuff, which we'll discuss in a little bit. But I had a dog at that time, and the dog crossed the Rainbow Bridge in April of 2020, and I told myself, all right, I'm going to start planning my leave of absence from this job, because I've always wanted to travel. I've saved up money. I don't have the same responsibilities. I want to see what else is out there, because I've lived in Minnesota my whole life, born and raised. There's far more to the world than just Minnesota. So then in September 2021, I took the leave and I traveled to Portugal for 2 months. And then I went to Spain for 2 weeks. And then I went to Dakar, Senegal for a little bit of a time, because it's my goal to paddleboard off the coast of every continent. And then I came back to the States, and I went to Mexico for a month, and came back to the States, and I went to Korea for 3 months. And when I was in Korea, my whole life changed, because I was introduced to this meetup group called SoulShare. And the connections that I made with the people there were so deep and so powerful, and it allowed me to be my authentic self. And when I had to leave because of visa, my 90 days were up, I went back to Minnesota, and I was like, well, I'm selling everything and I'm going back to Seoul. So I did. I sold my condo, which I loved very, very much. I loved living in that condo. But I sold the condo, and 3 months later, I was back in Korea, and I was there for another 3 months. And during that time, I had asked Iggy, the organizer of SoulShare, if I could lead some mindfulness sessions with the members of the SoulShare community. And he was like, yeah, that sounds great. So I started doing these virtual mindfulness sessions in November and December. And then I went over to Thailand for 6 weeks, but because they were virtual sessions, I was able to continue leading those sessions. And I went to Singapore for a week. I went to Vietnam for 2 weeks. I went to Japan for 2 months. And then I went back to Korea for another 2 months. And again, I just felt so connected to that community. But I also was feeling like my time there had fulfilled me. And there were some things that I needed to take care of back in the States. I'd been gone for 9 months. So I had to go back to the States, take care of some things. And so now I'm transitioning into this intentional living coaching. And what I mean by intentional living is that we are being purposeful around finding our purpose. So a lot of people like to start with passion. Stop with that. I need everybody to stop saying, follow your dreams and follow your passions. That's terrible advice. Please stop telling people that. Purpose and passion are byproducts. So purpose is a byproduct of understanding and accepting what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then it is an exploration of your curiosities. And then it is finding your crew. And my 2-year journey was all about finding my crew. That is what I recognize, is that I found my crew in Seoul, and they added so much meaning and purpose to my life that when I came back to the States, I'm like, I need to find who my crew is in terms of elevating and amplifying the work that I'm doing when it comes to intentional coaching. So that all leads to purpose, right? Understanding and accepting your strengths and weaknesses, exploring your curiosities, and then finding your crew and connecting with your crew who also are exploring those curiosities. That's purpose. Now, you want to find passion. Passion is a destination. It's not a starting point, and it is not a beacon. Passion is a destination. How do we get to passion? We take purpose and we multiply it by consistency, discipline, and patience. And then we land at passion. So that's what I help people do. And I incorporate mindfulness in that, and I incorporate assessments because I am somebody who likes proof of purchase. I like giving you tangible results while also helping you recognize the intangibles that you may not see, or all those things that I'm coaching people. They're all things that you know how to do anyway. They're all things that you've been told, hey, this might be beneficial to you. And you're like, yep, yep, yep. And then you stuffed it way back in your brain. And all I'm doing is I'm pulling it back up to the front. But then I'm creating a routine, and I'm creating a structure, and I'm creating consistency, and I'm creating discipline so that you'll follow those things. And I do it in a practical and manageable and applicable way. There's nothing crazy about it. And I think that's kind of why it's important that we demystify this idea of mindfulness. Yes, I sit and I meditate for 10 to 15 minutes a day. I can do that. I don't have kids. I don't have the same responsibility as a lot of people do. But mindfulness isn't meditation necessarily. Meditation is a form of mindfulness, but mindfulness isn't just meditation. Mindfulness, and when we break it down, is the present is being present with what is and without judgment. Now you can do that in a by minute. You can do that sitting in your car before you get out of it and walk into the office. You can take 3 minutes to simply be present with your breath and simply be present with what is. What are the emotions that exist within you? What are the emotions that are present right in that moment? And if you know that those emotions are present, then you can go into your first meeting and respond. You can go into that meeting and be mindful of what energy and what thoughts and what emotions you are bringing to it. And then you can approach it in a different way. And we can do that in just little steps. We can do that by simply enjoying our coffee and being present with the flavors and the aromas and the look of the coffee. You don't have to drink your whole coffee mindfully, but you could take the first 3 sips and actually savor the flavor and be present with the flavor and the smell and the feel of the coffee, because that hot, the hotness of the coffee, the steam of the coffee as it hits your skin. How are you using all 5 senses as you drink your coffee? And maybe just taking 3 minutes to do that. Maybe it's going for a mindful walk and just feeling what your feet, as they impact the ground, what sensations are there, how your muscles are activating. And you can do that for 5, 10 steps. And that's a minute or two at a time. So this whole idea of mindfulness can really be demystified if we remove I guess the apprehension towards sitting in stillness. That is not what mindfulness is. Meditation is sitting with intention and non-judgment with what is, certainly, but we can also be mindful in doing a variety of things and work. I'm working with Jeannie Love, who is a neurodivergent ADHD coach. So we're going to need to work with people who have the wiggles, who are adults who have the wiggles, who like movement. So we're going to be talking about how to live mindfully with ADHD. And a lot of that is going to incorporate mindful movement or tactile mindfulness skills. So that is how I got to where I am today, and that is what I am doing today. So I feel like I ranted and raved for a long time there, and I can see you bursting at the seams. So I'm gonna turn it over to you.
First of all, I need to call Jeannie because I'm ADHD
Oh,
neurodivergent.
we have
So
a course for you. I will send you the information
I
for the
know
course. We would love to have you come to the course.
I love it. I have the wiggles because everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, wait, I get it. So for someone who's so consciously not woo woo, you actually are extremely woo woo. And your soul journey proved that because you recognize what you were doing wasn't fulfilling. I love that you said what I finally did was fulfilling, and then it brought your people or your crew. And I always say to my clients or any of my friends and family, once you get into that vibration of what you love and what feels best, the people will come. So the old movie, build it and they will come.
Mhm.
It's been that way with my podcast, my coaching, my books, all of it. I didn't have to think about who am I writing this for? Who am I going to talk to? It just was just write it, just talk it, and they come. And so I love your soul journey. I love that the first step is, as I tell my clients too, the awareness, or I call it recognition. If I don't recognize something isn't working, I can't integrate something new. Further, sorry, I have a frog in my throat. You being a teacher soul, I love how that you insisted you had to have practicality in there and the tangible. So you had to insist that they have proof of this. And anyone who's been through any kind of a soul journey knows I can't give you an explanation. It just is. This feeling came or this opportunity came. I just made it come to be because I was in the best place that I could be. So everything that you said is so good. We may differ on passion though. I because that's the fun of having these discussions.
Mhm.
Um, I I think for me, because I am kind of highly sensitive and I think everything starts at emotion. If you start at an emotion of something, I think the tendrils and tentacles go from there. And then you figure out ikigai, the what am I good at? What do I know? And what am I passionate about is all there in you. And that's where the passion I think comes in. So what I want to know, and again, I love that about the meditation because your ADHD, neurodivergence, we can't sit still and do stuff. So the walk is meditation. It's our form of meditation. I have to be doing something or I have to be creating something that shuts my mind down enough to be focused and purposeful. Intentional is the buzzword here. You decided choice, intention. I think mindfulness equals choice. The first half of my life, I felt I had no choices. Therefore, I was not mindful. I didn't enjoy life. I didn't take risks. I didn't think I had any options. So tell me why everything you discovered ended up in this niche about this midlife point that you are now teaching on and doing courses on.
Yeah, so I like to focus on midlifers and I like to focus on empty nesters. You take a look at people who are in midlife, a lot of them have been working the jobs that they majored in 20 years ago. So you take a look at over 20 years, you probably have changed what it is that you enjoy doing. And I there are people who are very fortunate that they're still in the job and they're still doing something that they truly love, that they found that years and years ago, back when they were in college and they hit the nail on the head. I'd say there's a large percentage out there that doesn't feel compelled to continue doing. They don't feel a sense of purpose with the work that they're doing. Not only that, but as you get older, right, who you were before you were a parent and who you are now as a parent, you know, I'm only saying this because I hear parents talk about this, and I'm not a parent, But I hear parents talk about how everything revolves around their children now. And I gotta tell you, I think that's sad. I think that's sad. And I know there are parents out there who are like, you don't understand, having a child is the most beautiful thing that you could be. It's the most rewarding thing you could be. Great. But how much of you have you sacrificed in all of that? And so it's out of balance. And I hear a lot of parents talk about that. They're out of balance, that everything is for the kids, everything is for the kids. I think about when I was younger, my parents used to take me to all the things that they used to do, while also giving me an opportunity to do things that I enjoyed doing. So there was this balance. They played softball every week, at least once a week. And I always went to that. And I got to see my parents do their thing. I think my parenting idols are my former co-host, Brian on the bass. Now, Brian on the bass, we call him that because he plays bass in every band in the Twin Cities. He's got a great band now called Gen X Jukebox. They play all your favorite 90s hits. Go check out Gen X Jukebox. Brian on the bass and his wonderful wife, Kathleen, are just crushing parenting. Because when Brian plays a show, his kids come to the show if the venue is appropriate, right? In fact, his oldest son, who I think is only like 12 or 13 years old, runs sound for the band. And this is a big production. Like there's lights, there's a lot of instruments. His 12, 13-year-old son is running production. So, and it's not because Brian asked him, it's because he has this general interest in this. So I think about parents who are losing their identity. My friend Mishi is a new mom, and I think her daughter is maybe a year and a half, and she's talking about, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm really losing my identity because it's being sucked into this vortex of being a mom. So who am I when I am not a mom? So I think that this loss of identity really hits particularly around midlife, because either you've been so consumed with being a parent, or you're so consumed with your job and your job is wrapped up. Your identity is wrapped up in your job. If you meet me, I will never ask you what you do for work. That is easily the least interesting thing about you. I never ask people what they do for work, because people get wrapped up in that, and they try to explain what they do for work. And it's like, it never interests me. It almost never interests me. So who are you outside of being a parent and outside of being an employee? So that to me then is where we seek out that purpose. And that's where we seek out those curiosities. So that's why we go through, hey, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Hey, what are your curiosities? Now, who's your crew and how can we turn that into a purpose? And here's the thing, your purpose may not necessarily be the work that you do, but your purpose may be something that you do outside of your work that lights you up, that brings you joy. Like for Brian, his band playing live music, that's his purpose. That's what lights him up, and that's what brings him joy. And he's been doing that professionally for years and years and years. He's also the president of his company, but he's kind of got that figured out. So I think that's really important to understand. And then for empty nesters, as they are saying goodbye to their child, that child that's going into college, now who are you? Because, oh my gosh, you've been a parent for 18 to 25 years now, and the kids are out of the house, and you're looking at each other like, who are you? Who am I? So again, we're trying to find that purpose, and we're trying to find that passion. And again, my take is that those are byproducts, that those are destinations. We don't start with those things. If we start with those, we burn out. I think we too often conflate purpose and passion with hobbies and interests. It's not really a passion unless you're willing to do it on a weekend for free.
Yep.
And whether you are going to commit to the next weekend and the next weekend, the next weekend, doing it for free as well. So that's kind of how I look at purpose and I look at passion. So I like working with people who are kind of in that identity crisis, because as a former English teacher, I loved books that focused on identity and people who were, I used to teach a class called Man's Search for Meaning. And so those characters that were on this search, like Siddhartha, we used to read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, where he would talk about how did people in concentration camps find the will to live? What was their meaning to survive? And then we throw a curveball at them and we read The Stranger, where that character really is ambivalent to meaning, but everybody around them is trying to assign meaning to them. And trying to understand that and how we need to be careful of when we try to assign meaning to something that may not have meaning.
Mm.
So
I
I
love
like
that.
having people doing that through their our mindfulness work.
That's so fantastic. And we're getting definitely deep on the philosophical side, which is, I could talk about that for hours. And from the psychology point and the studies that I've done, a lot of time we find the identity in the validation of others. And so in my coaching, it's getting people to stop looking for that outside thing and find that confidence in ourselves. When you find something purposeful, you really, it's a natural order of things. Stop looking for validation from the outside. And you're like, hey, that feels really good. I'll throw a little wrench in there. I was a single parent of three, and my life did revolve around them because financially, I was just getting food on the table and keeping a roof over their head. There was no room for identity, time for what I loved or purposeful. So then as my kids grew, then I was an empty nester and I met my husband. And now I'm raising a teenage grandson. So they left and then they came back. I saw someone post on, I think it was TikTok or Instagram, and they said, my grandchildren get the parents my children deserved. And my husband and I joke because we used to say we would have done terrible raising kids together. And the universe said, hold my beer. So here we are. And we are fantastic parents together. Me never having a partner that was a participant is fantastic. And also my level of patience and how I don't sweat the small stuff that I did with my kids. So I do agree with you with that we lose ourselves. But I think, and I'm going to throw this in, this generation, that's why I liked the midlife thing, because I think in our generation, we were sort of brought up to just suck it up, and what you like and your happiness really aren't that important. And you know what I mean? It was like, don't follow your joy and your passion, just do what you're supposed to do. Being that I have all millennials and Gen Zs now, I find they really focus on what feels good and what makes them happy. And I think they're getting it sooner than we did. And the reason we coach a lot of the midlife and the over 45s, we'll say, is we weren't taught that. And so now we're like, hey, I want that. And so we are later in life going, I want to do what feels really good for me. And I want to feel validated and find purpose and let go of old identities. So I really think what you're doing is fantastic. I was in corporate in what I call a soul sucking job that when you said we change, yeah, what we want, what we need, that job was only to take care of my kids. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Now, my husband, as an engineer, went to college for engineering. 30 years in, he loves it, still does it. He is one of the fortunate ones that found it, hit the nail on the head. But I think you're right. Most of us evolved away from what worked for us at one point in our lives. So I love that you had said that. So how was it when you went back to teaching, or did you just come back from your leave of absence and say there is no way and heckity heck I can go back to this thing? And that's when you just said, hey, this taught me what I needed at the time, but now I have to help people feel what I've learned.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. It's 3:10 p.m. on the second day of school, and I am not calling you from my classroom. So I am no longer working in education. I resigned when I came back from Europe because there just wasn't going to be a way for me to transition back into that position. So here I am, and I decided to continue just the journey at that time. And I wouldn't call it a soul journey. That wasn't my intention whatsoever. My intention was to see the places that were highest on my bucket list and to have adventures in those places. And what I found during that time was the connections that I made is really what amplified those experiences and those adventures. So in doing so, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying making these connections, but what is it? What is it that these conversations are leading to? And a lot of people, and especially people that I didn't meet, people who are just kind of watching on the periphery, are saying, wow, what you're doing is really cool. I really admire what you're doing. You're really brave for doing this. And I was like, there's a fine line between bravery and stupidity. And I'm still not sure what side of that I am on at this point. I guess we're going to find out maybe in the next year where I fall in all of that. But but I recognized in hearing people's stories and in having these conversations and in doing my own podcast that there are probably more people out there like me in the sense that they're high energy, they're high strung, they're high anxiety, and for a long time I was extremely impulsive and reactive. Now, that's still within me. That's still in me, but it's in me less because I am I have worked on it. I have been intentional around it. I have established and cultivated a mindfulness practice for the last 10 years. I am trying to be more open and trying to be more aware of what's going on within me. Now, I think where I can grow is just kind of expanding my lens a little bit and taking in what's going on around me a little bit more. I'm very self-aware, maybe to a fault. So when I'm talking to people, I'm really trying to tune in to what it is that they're saying, both on a surface level, but then at a deeper level too. And I'm kind of a direct communicator. I'm not even kinda. I'm a direct communicator. So if it's on my mind, I'm going to say it, but I'm going to be able to say it in a tactful way. What I'm trying to figure out is when I'm having conversations with people is that aren't as direct as I am. What is the underlining meaning in this? And in being open to exploring that and being curious within my questioning of that. That's why I like being a podcast host, because when I'm having a conversation with somebody on the show, I'm trying to and being intentional around asking them questions that they don't get asked all the time. So I want to come in prepared and I want to get down and understand just a little bit deeper than I don't want them to answer the same question that they answered on two or three other podcasts. That isn't interesting to me. So I want to listen to those podcasts and then I want to ask them follow-up questions that the host didn't ask and just kind of get down a little bit deeper. And I know that that takes time and it takes trust and when you're establishing that relationship with a new client. So just kind of, and I'm very much a processor. So I'll hear someone say something and then I'm like, I'll take it at surface level. But then the next day I'll be like, when they said that, I wonder if there's something more to that. And then being able to circle around to that and not letting it slide. But I do need to process that after, because that's just kind of how I operate. I need time to absorb that sort of stuff because I have found that if I don't do that, then I give reactive advice as opposed to responsive advice.
Yeah, that makes all the difference. It's one of the things in my relationship coaching that I do with couples is taking that time, because we are wired to respond in the first 5 seconds, even 3 seconds, some psychologists will say. And so when we are reactive, we respond to triggers within us. So it's going to be something offended me. I'm recognizing it in me, and it had nothing to do with you. I'm like you, the processing, I'm going to sit back, take a minute, and then I'll come back. I'm very direct as well. I'm very honest. Everyone in my life knows that if you have an issue, please bring it to me. Please be as upfront and clear if I've done anything that you're upset about, because I feel like that's a trust. When someone can come to you and be that honest, it says something about you. There's an integrity there that someone trusts and believes that the relationship won't end if they can communicate with you and be honest. But that is something in my relationship coaching is we have a way of listening and receiving information, and we have a way of communicating or giving information. And it's very important to learn the people in your life, clients, friends, even strangers. If you learn, one of my techniques is figuring out what type of a listener someone is, because you're going to be a more effective communicator when you figure out how someone best receives the information you're giving. So here's an example. You say are a visual learner or a visual listener. So if I say to you, I feel like you did this, Billy, or my feelings are hurt, you made me angry, that's really not going to transcribe well for you. But if I go, so this is what it looks like, I'm picturing when I said that, this is how you saw it. See how different that is? If you're a visual receiver, you're going to respond better to that because that's how your brain is wired. It's like we have all these different wires, and now I connected our wires to receive better and communicate better.
Yeah, and I think just the default for many a male out there is when they're having a conversation with somebody, it's, well, how do I fix this and move on? Right. And so I've really had to work at deprogramming myself from that and being like, and asking, do you want a solution or do you just want to vent? Which one of these do you want? So I've really had to, and that's hard. That's been hard for me. But at the same time, I'm able to take a step back and be like, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying. What is it that you need from me? What is it that what would benefit you so that we can move forward? Because I I really don't like when people say, oh, you know what, everything happens for a reason. When they say it in the moment. What a terrible thing to say to somebody who's going through it in the moment. Like, let everything happens for a reason is a conclusion that I get to make. It's not something you need to tell me. It's a conclusion that I get to make. And when it becomes apparent what the reason is, and I can be like, oh, you know what, everything happens for a reason. Because in all honesty, I don't believe everything does happen for a reason. I think some things just happen. But I think that if things do happen for a reason, it's kind of like what we talked about, is that there is a process that we have to process through it. We have to be aware of what is happening around us. And then we have that advantage of being like, oh, let's reflect. How did we get here? Oh, it maybe had something to do with this right here. And then you can kind of sit with that and it feels good. But never in my life have I felt good when someone has said, well, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. Go away. Don't talk to me. I can't have, you can't talk to me right now.
Exactly. And I think 99% of advice we get is useless anyway. Because let's be real, we know the answers. Sometimes they're not the ones we want, but we know them. And especially since I've been life coaching, it's not my job to give you advice. It's my job to help you recognize things that you might not recognize in yourself and then say, well, what do you want to do about that? I have clients that'll say, oh, I did this again, Maureen. And I'll go, so? So you repeated it. What if you repeat it 10 more times? Who cares? If you like doing it, keep doing it. If you don't, then tomorrow you choose not to do it again. But I never make them feel bad because it's just something about who they are, a habit they've obtained, or they're making changes. They recognized it. I'm always going to hone in on what they did well. Oh, well, you recognize it. Good for you. You should be proud of yourself. Doesn't that feel better than me going, dang, Billy, you sucked. I told you not to do that. I mean, that's useless information, right?
And I think the information that coaches are sharing are a lot like a newsletter. Because you get that newsletter and then you just hit delete. You hit delete. Or maybe the subject line is catchy and you're like, oh, I'll read that later. And then guess what? You get 25 other emails and it gets pushed down to the bottom. And then you get a new newsletter and it's like, oh, wait. And all those newsletters, if you just actually click and read through it, maybe there is something in there. And the purpose of it is to remind you of something that you once knew to be true. And that's really what the reflection process is with coaching, right? The answer is there. It's just probably been shoved all the way back in your brain because the busyness of life has pushed it all the way to the back of your brain. So as coaches, we're just bringing it back to the forefront and maybe saying it in a way that, you thought about it before, but then you looked at it and you're like, oh, you know what? I thought about that, but I hadn't thought about it like that. And that's a new way to look at it. And just providing a different perspective on it. I just went to the eye doctor yesterday, and though I still have good vision, you know, I might benefit from readers. I could still read it. I could still read that super, super, super fine print. But then he said, hey, just see what this looks like with +1 readers on. And I was like, oh, that's a little crisper, that's a little sharper. So, clients, they can read it, but we're just adding that crispness. We're making things a little bit sharper for them as we help them navigate through these complexities and these possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like to look at my coaching as turning it around and reframing it in a way that they've never heard before. And like in the newsletter, I don't like to be a newsletter. And also the repetitive tapes they've said to themselves over and over, or they've heard from growing up, or relationships, teachers, people that just it didn't make them feel good. So I always aimed to make it different and in a way that they go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't recognize that. So I'm always aiming to put a spin on it. This has been absolutely fantastic. Let's tell everyone where to find you, where to find your courses, your coaching, and anything else you have going on. This is your moment to market your fabulousness.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So I really enjoy using LinkedIn, so people can find me on LinkedIn at Billy Lahr. It's Lahr. I have an Instagram. It's mindful underscore midlife underscore crisis, because that's the name of the podcast, which you can download wherever you get your podcast, the Mindful Midlife Crisis. So you can go to www.mindfulmidlifecrisis.com and you can access the Intro to Mindfulness course. Or if you're struggling with anxiety, I also have Mindfulness for Anxiety. If you want to dip your toe into what this whole meditation mindfulness thing is like, every Monday at 8 p.m. Central Time, I offer donation-based meditate and mingle sessions. So we set an intention at the beginning, and then we do a 10 to 15-minute guided meditation based around curiosity, openness, compassion, awareness, gratitude, acceptance, and non-judgment. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, you can come to those. And then we do a little discussion that follows that. And it's from people from all over the world, which is pretty cool. I have people from Korea, I have people from Singapore join, I have some people from Canada, I have people from the United States, just a couple of people from wherever, all walks of life. And then they share what came up for them during that meditation practice. They share what was challenging, they share what surprised them, and then we talk about how they can use whatever came up, the new awarenesses, moving forward in their life, and how they can apply it, and how those practical things can be used in order to experience life in a more favorable way. So those are some ways to get in contact with me. Also, if for those of you out there like you, Maureen, if you're saying that you'd like some tips on how to live more mindfully with ADHD, Jeannie Love and I are offering a course. I'm not sure when this episode is coming out, but we're offering this course in October on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. There are live sessions, but if you can't attend the live session, the good news is that you can get the replay emailed to you. So if you are interested in that, I'll send Maureen the information, or you can message me by shooting me an email at billy@mindfulmidlifecrisis.com. That's my email. Send me a message, even if you thought that I was a fool on this show and you want to discuss, I didn't agree with this. You know what? I'm open to feedback. Let's talk about where you are with things, and I can share my perspective, and we can just connect and have a conversation.
My listeners would never do that. I have the best, most compassionate, loving, open, non-judgmental listeners.
I'll tell
So
you what, words of affirmation is one of my love languages. So feel free to shower me with compliments as well, listeners. I take that too.
I'm telling you, I got your back, listeners. I won't let anybody say that you would ever do anything negative. So, as we close out, I do have a little segment that I like to do. And this new segment is called How Weird Are You? Because I am ADHD and neurodivergent and a little bit high functioning autistic, I like to, do some strange things. So, one of the things that I do is I love going to thrift stores and consignment stores, and I love the hunt for treasure, especially retro stuff from my childhood. So, I'm addicted to thrift store shopping. So, listeners, I'd love comments if you found anything cool recently. One of the things I found was the old Snoopy snow cone machine where you had to grind it for
Ooh,
like 30
yeah, I
minutes to get
remember
about
that.
a
Yeah.
Dixie cup's worth
Yes.
of ice. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that was kind of fun. So, tell me, what's your idiosyncrasy, weird habit? How weird are you, Billy?
I love this question. Oh, okay. So I've got two things. So recently I just saw my 52nd Pearl Jam show. I have seen Pearl Jam 52 times in 9 different countries. I love Pearl Jam. I'm kind of a collector in the sense that I have seen every Major League Baseball stadium, and I have paddleboarded in all 5 Great Lakes. And it is my goal to paddleboard off the coast of every continent. I have 4 down, 3 left to go. Yes, that does include Antarctica. Um, I think that that's maybe the adventure side. So this is here's some really weird stuff. I have a tendency to line up single item foods. So like you take for example clementines. I love clementines. So I will, peel the peel off, and then I will take each slice and lay them out individually. Usually there's 8 to 9. I prefer when there's 8 because then I can do 4 on each side. If there's 9, I will do 3 and 3. Yeah, I'll do that. And then another thing that I will do is when I eat French fries, I will take 2 or 3 fries and I will make sure that the tops are even, and then I will dip them into the ketchup, and then I will eat them, and then I will take the 2 or 3 more fries. I will line up the tops and I will dip them and I will eat them. I have had people point that out to me before and be like, this is very fascinating to watch you eat French fries. And I just do it without even really thinking about it. And then when someone points it out to me, I realize, oh, yeah, this is maybe a little weird.
I freaking love it. This is what this segment is all about. And my OCD heart is hugging you right now because it's those things. My daughter on French fries, I don't care how big or how small it is, she bites it until just the part down to your finger is left. And then she puts it down and doesn't eat the
Oh,
rest of it.
okay.
So
If I have fries that are different lengths, I will snap the one fry in half so that it is I like when the fries are all the same length. So I try to match those. And if there are long fries, then I'll snap those in half so that they fit the rest of the other size of the fries. So yes, I am
it's
certifiably insane when
No,
it
you're
comes to French
not.
fries.
It's just being us and being unique. It's like synchronized ketchup swimming. I'm
Yeah,
loving
oh, there
it.
we go. There we go.
Oh, thank you for being on today. Thank you for being weird like me. And thank you for all that you are doing in the world. I'm calling you woo woo. Go ahead and come for me. I don't care. I love it. You're here because you're woo woo, because I only attract the woo woo fun people. So thank you again for that hour that you gifted my listeners and myself today, Billy. You're such a joy.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoy the energy coming from you, Maureen. So I really appreciate you giving me the time. Thanks.
Thank you. Hang in with me. All right, listeners. That's it for today. I hope you really enjoyed Billy. I thought he was fantastic. I loved his subject matter. I think he has such wonderful things to bring and help with mindfulness. And whether it's midlife or not, I definitely like his ideas on purpose. And it sounds like his coaching and courses are amazing. So I'll have all those links for you to get a hold of Billy or to sign up for those courses. So I'm just so glad he was here with us. As for me, big hugs to all of you for being here as usual. Don't forget to like, subscribe, invite your friends and family to come join us, build the I Never Knew community. Make sure if you know of anyone in a mental health crisis that you reach out to them and you help them and have them dial 988 in any sort of moment where they need some help, because we want everyone to live their best lives. And if you need any coaching, confidence coaching, dating coaching, relationship coaching, I'm here for it. And lifecoachmaureen.com is where you'll find me. My books, My Dog is More Enlightened Than I Am, and My Dog is My Relationship Coach are available. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart, Outskirts Press, all that fun stuff. Book number 3 is coming out, and it's a children's book about mindfulness. So I think Billy is going to enjoy that. And then, of course, our boutique online, Healthy Treats and Nose and Toes Balm shampoos, apparel, gifts, safety products for your furry babies, including cats. So my dog is everything.net. Go on and order yours today. Love you all for being here. Take care of you. Take care of each other. Most of all, take care of those furry babies and adopt. Do not shop. Love you all. Till next week. Mwah.